All right, guys, we are back for another Dokkan battle video. I've talked about this many times, legitimately in maybe over 100 videos at this point over the last couple of months. I think 2025 Dokkan is a very good year for Dokkan. I think we could probably say it's in range with 2024 for a potential best year in Dokkan history. It's funny. I think 2022 is thought of as much better than it potentially actually might have been if, like, everything was coming out on global at the same time. Like, the first thing I would have to mention with a lot of the complaints about the game I see, I do think a lot of that just has to do with the difference in that the games are synced, right? I think it's kind of like a huge issue in a lot of the criticisms of just various parts of Dokkan that I see. I think the sync made it to where, when there's nothing going on, there's really nothing going on. When there's a problem, it's really magnified. So it's like these types of things I'm just kind of like noticing. Because remember, 2025, this is our first year where, outside of, I guess, a couple of small exceptions, right? JP getting like updates a little bit earlier, Global still having the packs and stuff like that they could purchase. Like, there's minor differences, but for the most part, the games are synced now, right? So 2025 is the first year where like all the releases have been on both versions at the same time. And I think that for this year, right, the biggest issue for me, I think, is that we established a first 6 months, right, of character kits. I pulled up, I'm counting major EZAs, as well as, summonable LRs, Dokkan Fest TURs. I'm just pulling up a bunch of major characters whose kits are kind of countered by the GDC content that we got about halfway through the year. Now, we haven't seen this before in what I consider modern Dokkan, which I kind of is like 2019 on. That's where Dokkan kind of implemented this kind of like pattern of releases that they still do. So it's like, we get our Saiyan Day character, then we get a Dokkan Fest at the start of April, we get a Part 2 LR in April, we get the Dual Dokkan Fest in April. Like, all of the time slot releases are pretty static outside of, when we've seen potentially like the Gammas, right? Rather than a Part 2 LR in October in 2022, we had the Gammas come out as Dokkan Fest exclusives because there was new Dragon Ball content for the brand, right? Or, in December of 2022, rather than, Dokkan Fest TURs as a dual Dokkan Fest, we got Dokkan Fest LRs as a dual Dokkan Fest, the brand new characters from the Dragon Ball Superhero movie, right? So this is the first year where we get halfway in, and then a lot of the characters just hit a wall. We have not seen this. And talking specifically about the anniversary characters. This, like, not, the carnivals, not the Yellow Coin LRs. We're talking about the anniversary Dokkan Fest exclusives, who, outside of, I guess we could say maybe Int Evolution Blue Vegeta, people were very down on him as the year went on. Outside of, like, him, every year, like, the anniversary Dokkan Fest, like, finished the year basically still, like, top 5 range, right? Going into the 7th anniversary, I thought EJL UI Goku was still the best unit in the game. I thought the first character they released in 2021 was the best character they released the entire year, and it never changed until the 7th anniversary. I like, retroactively, I think that was correct. I think that was true. Right, up until the 7th anniversary LRs dropped and Red Zone dropped. My biggest issue with this year is it's not kits either. Like we'll talk a little bit about the kits of the 10th anniversary fusions, right? I don't think it's kits. I don't think they made them underwhelming. I don't think it's anything like that. I think the direct cause is this. It's these fights. We went from, remember, so we look at this guy, and, I mean, he can fuse into Vegito on turn 5, and it only lasts for 2 turns. right? You have 2 turns of Vegito before you revert back to base. That's why this 4 turns, what this means is no matter what, unless the fight ends, you have 2 rotations of Vegito, right? If you float him, if you keep him on rotation, anything, you have 2 turns. They set this up, like, fights were intended to go essentially past turn 9, right? When they drop this guy. Then we go to these fights, and you're talking about locking AoEs, monster supers, like unsurvivable conditions from turn 1, slot 1, second 1. That, to me, is kind of like the big issue with this year, right? A lot of these criticisms of many of these characters, you know, it does just boil down to they were created for a specific type of environment, and that was removed halfway through the year, right? And instead, we're in a different type of environment. Now, 2022 was like this, but it was in reverse, where the fights came first, and then Dokkan was releasing characters. Majin Vegeta sucked. Who was Ginyu was elite. But Majin Vegeta sucked for months. It wasn't until Vegeta and Trunks that he got good. Sorry, he was ass. Raditz was terrible. Goku and Piccolo was terrible. The ROF Blues were terrible, right? Like, it's just release after release after release after release in 2022. They just all sucked right in a row. They're just all terrible. All underwhelming compared to Red Zone. And then we get to LR Golden Frieza and LR Vegeta and Trunks, and then 2022 really kicked it into gear, and the end of the year was just incredible, right? At the end of 2022. They just released legendary character after legendary character. You know, the 2022 worldwide, part 1s were great, part 2s were very weak and mid, unfortunately, but they were still very hype. And then we go Path to Power Kid Goku, legendary character. Gammas were legendary, right? You know, eventually finishing off with Orange Piccolo, one of probably the 3 best characters of all time. Probably, right? So, 2022 has similarities. And I've compared this year many times to 2022, right? Where it's kind of like, it's a similar thing where the first half of the year's releases ended up not really being crazy. And then we hit GDC, right? And then now they're all killers. The Blues, Rose, right? You go through all these major releases, Omega, Super Saiyan 4, Gogeta, even a lot of the EZAs are dominant, sub-EZAs are dominant, right? Boom, another killer, another killer, another killer, another killer, right? Like, Wrath Broly, I guess, is a little mid, but, like, most of these characters that have come out since GDC Power Creep have been really crazy, because they needed to be. Because of how ridiculous these fights are, and also these fights. It's kind of like a combination of these 2 events. I mean, maybe I'm crazy. I don't think there's anything wrong with the Great Ape event. I think that those fights are just designed a very smart, like those are actually fights, you know, you could use your brain, like, those are just, like, good fights, I think, the Great Ape fights. And then the Tamagami fights are, you know, they're, I mean, you could put the Tamagamis in this conversation as well, if you really wanted to, but, like, these events came out at, like, essentially kind of like the same time. So let's just look at some of these characters. So we already talked about Tech Vegito. Now, when it comes to them starting with their offensive forms first, swapping into their defensive forms, people, you know, really wanted them to start with their defensive forms. I do understand why they didn't. It is a thing where, although, I mean, I guess the GDC Power Creep was way too much, but I do think the game is kind of, like, better when we avoid, like, this nuclear power creep button. I do. I think it's going to create a scenario where it's just, you know, maybe, like, the top, like, you know, 0.1% of players, oh, we're thriving and we love the challenge. But I think most players, like, you just load into this fight and you're just like, yeah, fuck this. Like, no way. Right? Like, AoE everywhere, locking, you instantly take damage, second 1 from Zamasu. Goku Black is such a demon, right? Like, most players would just probably instinctively just attack Goku Black, right? Have you ever seen Iron King do this fight before? Right? Like, you know, so it's like, bro, like, I think that a lot of times there can be a lot of excitement when, you know, there's like, oh my god, like a new super crazy fight, for sure. But I don't, like, I think they went too far, right? They wiped out an entire couple of months of characters, and I just think that this is kind of like of any issue we want to say in 2025, to me, I would say this GDC power creep is the biggest one, and how it affected a lot of the characters. Now, for these guys, the reason they don't start in their defensive forms is because then it becomes very, 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 very hard, I think, to power creep the characters, right? To where then, okay, so now it's just these fights. We're going to get more and more and more fights that look like this. So I don't really so much have an issue with the way these guys are designed. It's just the problem is they set all these characters up. Because before, in the 10th anniversary Red Zones, which people did not like the 10th anniversary Red Zone fights, by the way. And I could certainly think that's valid. Because a lot of these fights, let's just look at some of these 10th anniversary Red Zone events here. Like the Goku story and the Vegeta story Red Zones, right? So, like, I don't know. This was the main fight everyone was kind of running. And this fight, it really is just so boring for so long of it, right? Like, it's like, you don't, this fight doesn't start until you get to Jiren. I mean, that oftentimes turn 6, 7, 8, the fight starts. Like, it's just so long until you get to it. And Jiren, I remember, it really didn't even feel that hard. He was just very annoying, right? It is kind of like the way they had set him up. So it's like, you know, you're spending 10 plus minutes to get to the meat of the fight where the boss is more annoying than hard. And then especially with the HP, it felt like this was just here to waste time rather than, oh my God, you know, it's so difficult because he has so much HP. It's more like, okay, like, we're going to win, but we just are sitting here just kind of like attacking a really like spongy boss, right? So it's like these characters are designed for these fights, and then they just bait and switched us halfway through the year, right? So there's Tech Vegito. We have Evolution Blue Vegeta, who has no active skill. Oftentimes an active skill attack can do one major thing, which it'll trigger your whole passive. So if a character gets, you know, 200% defense when attacking, or maybe they get like damage reduction with 24 key or certain types of things like that, having an active skill could trigger that and at least give you a defense for like an AoE turn, but Vegeta has none of that. This is just a character who could kind of just get, you know, locked in slot 1, or a big AoE comes at him and he's done, right? Namek Goku. I would consider myself more favorable to Namek Goku and Full Power Frieza probably than most, because they were designed for a specific purpose. The 10th anniversary Red Zone fights and the festival battles. That's what their stacking was for. Namek Goku, I think he was on my first ever no item run clear, I believe. Namek Goku. Like, Namek Goku was solid. I think people are a little too hard on him because he did do the job that he was there to do. But these guys are like long form stacking characters. So we go into Goku Black and Zamasu turn 1, or, you know, some of these insane fights against like Gohan and these hybrid Saiyans, where it's like, you know, like, let's just take a look at Gohan right here. Gohan doing his like 13 million super attack turn 1 slot 1 instantly, right? Guess what? Like, barely anything in the game is taking this. It's just like instant death handed out. It gets pretty crazy. So there's them. Same thing with Vegeta, right, as Vegito, except Vegito is able to do a little bit better. Now, this is something we were talking about, like, the day Vegeta came out, is that Goku had stacking damage reduction, whereas poor Vegeta here, I mean, he just had multiple instances of guard, right? Like, we could notice it. So I think Vegito is fine. This Vegeta, though, they definitely could have switched something up here. This should not be guard. This should be like 30% damage reduction or something. 40% damage reduction is what they like. That right there should be replaced with 30 or 40% damage reduction. And I think that would have been totally fine for this guy, because what this guy is way more squishy than Tech Vegito is. You know, when you get the 10th anniversary fusions, when you start getting to their active skills, they can still be very good. Very good, especially Veku. This Veku active skill. I mean, because look, people forget about this, but it's a Ghost Usher. But then the fucker has guaranteed dodge for 2 turns. Guaranteed 100%. So it's like, if you get to their actives, they're doing shit for you. But unfortunately, Dokkan is like, yeah, no. No. Yeah, no. Same thing with Frieza. Just quickly, Goku is a great character. They made this Goku is very strong. Nice defensive character, can really help out. He's got some stacking. Nice, has a nice healing active skill. Really effective. This Frieza to me has to be one of the worst, like maybe the worst designed anniversary character of all time. This Frieza, I think easily. This Frieza's just pure garbage. Pure garbage. And of course, he'll do nothing in the current fights that exist. He'll do nothing. Like, this guy's a trash man, and you can't even get to Goku until turn 4. I always felt like they fucked up bad with this character, by the way. This character felt like you should be able to choose who you want to be on turn 1, right? Because Frieza's good if your HP is low. Goku is good if your HP is high. So the turn could start, oh shit, we're at low HP. We'll use Frieza here. Oh, we're at high HP. We'll use Goku here. That's the intent of the character, yet because they locked Goku until turn 4, you can't even, like, really do that or see that, right? So, huge issue for this guy. And remember, like, a lot of these characters, we're looking at Anniversary LRs, we're going to look at, this is, like, compare this guy. This is a fair comparison. Compare this guy to TUR Gamma 1 and 2. It's a fair comparison, because they're kind of the same thing, right? Like, first major character from the new series. I guess there was Glorio and Daima Super Saiyan, or the Super Saiyan Goku, but this is a lot bigger than that. Like, and this guy, same thing. So so many of these fights, locking, stunning, sealing. Here, let's get rid of the pitiful 10th anniversary Red Zone fights. Let's get rid of these. These fights are filled with locking, sealing, AoEs, dodge canceling, stunning, like all bullshit, just craziness everywhere. And then you get like a guy like this. He's like, I'm okay as long as I'm in slot 1. And then they're just like, nope, you're locked out of slot 1. Sorry, fucker. And now you're dead. Right? Like, it's like this guy. I didn't like him even in the 10th anniversary meta. Now, what chance does this kid have? This guy. If things break for you perfectly, he can still be effective. But, he's a long-form stacking character. The point is you're stacking with him. You do numerous super attacks to get to this point. Once you get this activated, usually he's ridiculously good, right? But, again, we're in a meta where you don't get a chance to do all that, right? So it's like, if things break perfectly for this guy, he can cook just the same way the 10th anniversary fusions can. But if things go badly, he just gets instantly one-shot, right? Because he's designed for longer fights. And again, this is not, oh my god, we must complain about the 10th anniversary every second of every day. This is another major celebration, Saiyan Day. And we look at the history of Saiyan Day characters. The 10th anniversary fusions broke a long line of Anniversary Dokkan Fest dominating all year. Kid Goku breaks a long line of Saiyan Day characters dominating all year. Golden Week breaks a long line of Golden Week characters dominating all year. It's not the fucking characters, it's a fucking power creep! They fucked up with GDC power creep! This is the problem! This is the problem. This is the problem. The reason why, oh wow, this is weird, here, let's grab, you. And then you. So then we go bam, 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 bam. Yeah, let's get you out of here. Okay, so you go, this is weird. It's because of fucking power creep, dude. It's not even, and I use power creep. That might not even be the correct term. It's not that the bosses are stronger. I feel like when I'm saying GDC power creep, maybe it's a bad term I'm using that is going to cause my message to get lost in translation here. The point I'm making is then they fucked up with the design of these fights by completely, they gave us 6 months of the strongest characters in the game, and then all of those characters' weaknesses are what these fights are. They're directly set up to completely eviscerate, again, what was all of the strongest characters, right? Like, let's just quickly jump back over here. And I just want to go into let's look at what an LR and a TUR tier list look like before these GDC fights. Yeah, exactly. Here's a TUR list. This is June 7th. That's June 7th right there. And how about LRs? Here's May 19th. All right. Like, they're directly countering a lot of the best characters in the game. Like, you see it, right? Like these characters we've mentioned, Kid Goku, Hit, Vegito, AGL Gogeta right there. That is the issue with this year. People have, like, they're always, we live in an era, it's not the Dragon Ball community, it's not the Dokkan community, it's all of society, like, thrives off of negativity, right? It's just kind of how it is. And so, like, oh, this character sucks, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad about every single little thing. This, in my opinion, was really bad. And that's, again, let's maybe not use the term power creep, but the design philosophy of the GDC fights to completely counteract all these characters. Oh, I didn't even get to Kale and Khalifa as well, who, again, you don't see Kale and get their crazy abilities until turn 6. You don't see turn 6 in these fights. If you see turn 6, you don't. You're actually seeing a game over screen and you're back on the main menu, right? So it's like, like, that is the problem. The design philosophy of them wiping out 6 months of the best characters is the huge issue for 2025 Dokkan.